Hello, everyone, and welcome to AGU webinar resources available from AGU's new Ethics and Equity Center, featuring guest speakers Billy Williams and Pranoti Asher. I am Leslie Marasco, Student Diversity Program Manager at AGU, and I will be your host today. First off, just some housekeeping items. If you have any questions during the presentation today, please type them into the question box in the control panel, and we'll answer as many as we can at the end of the presentation. Additionally, a link to the recording will be available to all attendees in a follow-up email in the next couple days. Also, you can always view webinars for this recording and previously recorded webinars at webinars.agu.org. And finally, we will ask you to reply to some poll questions today. When we kick off a poll question, you will see a pop-up screen where you can respond. And in fact, to kick us off today, we're going to start with a poll question just to get an idea of what professional sectors are represented today on the webinar. And if you can take a look at that poll question. Got some responses coming in. Thank you guys for voting. We'll wait just a couple more seconds. Got lots of people from academia. All right, we're going to close out the poll in 3, 2, and 1. All right, so as you can see, we have most people from academia, some people from nonprofits, as well as a couple people from government today. So thank you all for just giving us a better idea of who's represented, just so we can kind of tailor some of the information for you. And next, I'll introduce the first panelist today, which is Dr. Pranoti Asher. Dr. Asher is the Higher Education Manager for the American Geophysical Union. Prior to joining AGU, she spent 18 years as a geoscience faculty member at universities and community colleges. She received her bachelor's and master's degree in geology from the University of Bombay, India, and her PhD in geological sciences from the University of Connecticut. And with that, I'll pass the mic over to Pranoti.
All right, thank you, Leslie. Welcome, everybody. I am delighted to introduce today's speaker, Billy Williams, who serves as AGU's Vice President for Ethics, Diversity, and Inclusion. At AGU, he has responsibility as the Senior Staff Partner for leading all aspects of AGU's ethics and equity-related programs. Prior to that, he served as the Director of Science at AGU. Billy has been the principal investigator and lead organizer for the September 2016 National Science Foundation funded workshop on sexual harassment in the sciences, A Call to Respond, and currently serves as a co-PI on the 2017 NSF grant, Advanced Partnership from the Classroom to the Field, Improving the Workplace for the Geosciences. Prior to joining AGU, he served as a senior program officer at the National Academies of Science, has been a global research and development director at the Dow Chemical Company, and has also been the director of Dow's external science and technology programs. Billy earned his Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and his master's degree in organic chemistry from Central Michigan University. Take it away, Billy.
Oh. Questions of screen.
Hey, hello. Pranoti, I don't see the slides. Are the slides available? I know there were some difficulties earlier. There we are. Okay, great. Wonderful. So thank you, everyone. I assume you can all hear me. I'm happy you could join us today. And I'm very happy to talk with you today about something in AGU we're very proud of. This has been a journey to get here, but I'm here to talk about the AGU Ethics and Equity Center. There are some very, very unique new resources we have available for AGU membership and across the scientific community. And I want to make sure you are fully aware of what's included there and know how to navigate these and how to request and assist us as we promote these more fully and partner with other organizations along the way. So next slide. So here's just the agenda for today. We'll walk through, rather than just jumping right in, just going straight to the website. We'll talk a little bit, just a few minutes, about the context for this. Why are we doing this? We'll talk about the journey to establishing the Ethics and Equity Center, and then let you know how we envision this playing out, and the whole purpose of why we're doing this. And then go into a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the resources and tools that we think you might be interested in applying back at your home institutions. And we'll follow that up with questions and answers. So the title of this is Everything You Ever Want to Know, plus some. So we hope to be able to answer all of your questions today, and plus provide you with some information that you might not even be aware of that you might need. Okay, next slide. So as part of the context of this, when I get up every day, I'm thinking about not so much about ethics or about ethics centers or websites or anti-harassment. I'm thinking more about how do we promote and support a positive and inclusive culture for advancing the sciences. So this is about elevating ourselves, elevating our total community, and building what I heard someone describe, when we get this right, will be an irresistible organization. So we're working towards building this not only irresistible organization, but this irresistible climate and culture across earth and space sciences. So if you look at the photo on the right, I think it's a great photo. That's a scene from the 2018 AGU fall meeting in Washington, D.C. And that's a scene of people just waiting to get into the opening of the exhibit, of the exhibit hall. I don't think they were all waiting there just for beer, but they were waiting to get into the exhibit hall. But I think this is a scene that in my mind represents, when we get this right, this will be what it feels like or looks like for people waiting to get inside of AGU, for people waiting to be part of the Earth Space Science community, because of the things that we have within our community to offer to societies, especially as we deal with some of the serious issues that are impacting us. So this is all about how do we build that positive, inclusive culture for everyone, where everyone is invited to participate. They can bring their full selves, and they can make a contribution to advancing the sciences with a benefit to everyone. Next slide. So we started down this path. People were asking you, why are we doing this? Why AGU versus, you are all employed by an organization that has its own work climate, work culture. So what is our role at AGU as a professional society? And to be honest, we started down this path as we started to address the issue of harassment in sciences. And because of those issues of harassment in sciences, we found ourselves in a position to really make an impact, probably more so than what you might be able to impact in your own home institution, by promoting and putting into code professional behavior. What does this look like? What should this look like? And having some common standards for that, as opposed to each individual institution or organization holding the standards for the Air Force Space Sciences. Not that we hold the standards, but we can help elevate and provide some commonality and help promote what we see as a culture that's inclusive and welcoming and advancing the sciences. We're in a position to enforce sanctions that are tied to code of conduct and policy. You'll hear a little bit more about that, but that's not all that we're about. We're more about this third item, helping to educate and support members. So as we have gone down this road of ethics, diversity, and inclusion, sometimes people think of ethics as you're the ethics police and you're here to catch people doing wrong. No, we're here to help people do things the right way, and how do we advance and promote that. And that final item is really our obligation, our responsibility to collaborate and provide these positive incentives for a changed culture. On that top header, when we started down this path, we saw this as an opportunity to do these things as a professional society, but now we view it more as a responsibility. And we're working with other professional societies to advance the cause. Next slide. So in our path to the Ethics and Equity Center, there are several things that happen along the way. So in 2015, in the fall of 2015, there was a very public case of sexual harassment that broke into the national news media. This is way before the Me Too movement. But because that person who was in the news was a member of not a direct member of AGU, but a closely connected member of our scientific society, it hit very, very close to home. And then we had other cases that became very prominent that we discussed in a town hall meeting in 2015. And from there, we evolved into board and council discussions and the appointment of an ethics task force in 2016. And that ethics task force did great work. The members of AGU who served in the task force did great work. And their work resulted in updates to the ethics policy, AGU ethics policy in 2017. But between 2015 and 2016 and the ethics policy in 2017, at about the same time, the National Science Foundation supported us in sponsoring a workshop to address these issues. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And we spun up the Safe AGU program at fall meetings just to provide more recognition for some of the issues that were impacting us. Most of those items were centered around harassment. But as we have gone forward, as we look beyond 2017, as we have added in diversity and inclusion, all of the work climate related issues that we're aware of, and looking at the impact of what came out of the National Academies report, these things are not disconnected. So all these things roll together, and people are asking for resources and knowledge and information on how to address some of these very, very important issues that are keeping us from becoming these irresistible organizations. And we think what we just announced in February of this year, the Ethics and Equity Center, will help move us towards that path by providing each of you, whether you're a student, a researcher, department head, or institutional dean or a provost, some additional resources that might be beneficial. And that's included in the Ethics and Equity Center. We'll talk about that. We'll talk more about what's on the website. We'll talk about the center overall. So let's go ahead to the next slide. So the context for this, again, the 2016 workshop. Again, in this workshop, we pulled together participants. There were about 60 participants from across academic institutions, scientific societies, and government agencies. And this was sponsored with AAAS, ACS, AGI, Earth Science Women's Network, AWG, and the National Academies. And what we discussed there for the first time in the public setting was this whole idea of the role of scientific societies in dealing with these issues. What is our responsibility? And how do we do this in a way that's supportive and can actually feed back to the institutions of higher education? So this was a milestone event for us. We're very proud to have led that effort in pulling it together, and some very useful ideas and concepts evolved from that workshop, and some of those are being manifested today. Next slide. In addition to that effort, some of these I'll talk about more fully as we get deeper into the discussion today. Again, we had to update AGU ethics policy, which classified harassment as scientific misconduct. We started to strengthen the AGU Safe AGU program by providing various workshops and training at each one of our meetings. We put in place new procedures and processes related to honors and awards and AGU governance, such as requiring professional conduct self-disclosure, which is operated very much as similar to the way we handle code of conflict of interest. So each person who is a candidate for an award or for governance position in AGU is now required to fill out a professional conduct self-disclosure form, where we will ask questions about whether there have been prior sanctions, professional conduct sanctions against you, or whether you're under any current allegations. And we also now provide an annual summary report to all of our members in the interest of transparency on all of our ethics activities over the course of the year. So in that annual report to members, you will see the type of allegations received, the number of allegations we received, and how those things are handled and disclosed. Also related to what we'll talk about is this whole concept of partnership. So we now are promoting this Ethics and Equity Center, and we could not do that without strong partnerships. And one of our key partners on this is an organization centered at the University of Illinois, the National Center for Professional Research and Research Ethics. I've abbreviated here as NCPRE, but they have very, very deep resources in this area. You will see some of those reflected in our AGU Ethics and Equity Center. This has been a very a strong synergistic partnership with them, and I think you will appreciate what they bring to the table as well. We also now have a recently approved AGU Diversity and Inclusion Strategic Plan that you will see promoted very, very shortly, with AGU the intention to become a model organization for an inclusive environment. And you probably are all aware of the National Academy of Sciences report on sexual harassment in academic STEM that was released in June of 2018, which has been heavily promoted. In fact, it was highlighted at the AGU 2018 fall meeting. So all of these things are touch points for the Ethics and Equity Resource Center. And the last item is this consortium that's now been pulled together of over 80 professional societies are now members of what's called the Society's Consortium for Addressing Harassment in STEM. That's STEM with two M's because it includes medicine, so science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and medicine. So that's been a pretty big deal for us over the past 3 months. And to see, and I think the official count as of yesterday was 94 societies have signed on to be part of this consortium, where we will share and promote best practices for elevating the culture across evidence-based sciences, and also collaborate back with the national academies as they promote similar efforts with institutions of higher education. So we're very proud of that. So those are all touch points as we go forward, and some of these things will be reflected as you look at what's provided in the Ethics and Equity Center. So next slide. This to give you an idea of our vision for the center. So the vision is that this center will be an authoritative resource, and the key items are highlighted in red. They're actively educating and promoting leading practices. So these are leading practices addressing harassment, diversity, inclusion, and related work climate issues, plus the traditional research ethics information that you might need to advance your science, such as data management, publication ethics, and a host of other information that we'll talk through in a few minutes. This is being promoted currently as a AGU Centennial Legacy Program. That is, this is to go into the future. And again, at the bottom, this is done in partnership with the National Center for Professional Research Ethics and other science organizations. You'll see a list of our partners later. So next slide, just to give you some sense of what you will find overall. So as we were pulling information together, we had a vision. Now, all of these things are currently available, but most are to have a one-stop shopping place where you can find organizational and departmental work climate assessment tools, unconscious bias and implicit bias, and bystander intervention workshop and training resources, some online resources and webinars. We envision at some point some of the organizations we're partnering with will provide certificates. So if you're completing a course, you might receive a certificate for that. That's not available currently, but we're working with some partners who would provide that in the future. Safe place counseling and resources for individuals who are targets of harassment. We'll talk a little bit more about this because this has been one of the highlights of the Ethics and Equity Center. This concept of AGU providing free consultation with a legal advisor. scholarly research and classroom teaching tools. Some of those are evolving currently and some are yet to come, but you will see some information there already. And then this will be a repository for partner organization resources, best practice awards, and relevant publications. And you will see all of that. Next slide. But today what we want to do, again, this was launched in February of this year. There was a soft launch back in September that helped us work out a few bugs. It was launched formally on February 12th. You should all have looked at the website and seen the home page and clicked through it, I hope, and I hope that will help guide some of the questions we get today, because this is brand new. We're still learning as we go on some things that are working, that work well for you, some things that don't, and looking for feedback. But I'm also interested in having a discussion more about the types of resources that are provided and other things that might be of interest to you. There's additional services there based on the NCPRE resources, which are very, very deep. And I will click through some of the additional resources that you might be interested in, whether you are a department head or whether you are a graduate student or even undergraduate student. And the other thing to highlight for the center is we're still building partnerships. We have about 6 organizations currently listed as partners, and we are in discussions with others for partnering on this resource center. And we don't see this as an AGU thing. So I would imagine as the years evolve, it's labeled as AGU now because it's our centennial year. But I think as we go forward, as more and more people partner in with us, you might see this evolve into something that reaches across the sciences, and it might even reach across STEM with 2 M's, because the medical sciences are dealing with the same issues we're dealing with here in terms of culture and climate and some of the specific issues related to harassment, diversity, and inclusion. And they're looking for consultation and support, and we can support each other. So we're still building partnerships as we go forward. Next slide. So what we will do today is really shine a spotlight on a few of these resources that I think you will be interested in, that you might not have come across as you have journeyed through the website. So we're going to talk a little bit about some things you will find there, such as the data and publication standards, resources of men as allies, some implicit bias videos, anti-harassment curriculum that's fairly new posting that's in beta testing. This is not the home for Sea Change, but we will have some your ability to get to Sea Change resources through this website. And I'll talk a little bit more about Sea Change if you're not familiar with that program. That program is housed at AAAS, but AGU is leading the efforts to promote departmental awards, Sea Change departmental awards. And then there's a lot of leadership resources, and the Consultation with Legal Advisor, I think that's the one we've got the most questions on over the past few weeks, so we'll dig into that one a little bit more. So with that, we're going to take a closer look at the website on the next slide, but before we do that, go to the next slide. Yeah, we want to get some tips where you are in your career stage that will help us focus our discussion as we dig a little deeper.
So you should see a poll up on your screen. If you could just let us know what your current career stage is. Looks like we have some votes coming in. Thank you all. We'll keep it open for another few seconds. You get your responses in 3, 2, and 1. It looks like most of the people joining us today are later in their career, almost half, and then it kind of tiers down with that. The next highest mid and early, and then we have a few students on as well.
Okay. Great. That's very helpful. Thank you, Leslie. That's helpful because now we will, if you turn the screen control over to me, we will then take a look at the center and dig a little deeper into it. So can you see my screen, Leslie?
Yes.
You see it?
If you want to scroll down just a little bit, because it's quite large within the window.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, it won't be an entire thing. I will work from the top half of the screen, but
Great.
you are seeing the website, okay?
Yes.
So what we will do is I will share with you some information and walk more from left to right on some things you might find here, some things that I think are a little bit unique, and some things you say, oh, I know about that already. So over on the two things you know. First of all, as you scroll through this, at any point, if you go to the drop-down menu across the top heading, if you're down at any point, let's say that we go to partners. And to navigate back, you just go up to the top icon, and that will take you back to the home page. Okay. And on the home page, there are a number of things listed. I think the most important thing, or most things that might get your attention on the home page, is the interviews profile, where we try to highlight articles you might be interested in. These are only refreshed about once every week or once every 2 weeks, so it's not the latest breaking news, but it's more things that we hope you'll be interested in. Also, under About, we have advisory group. The advisory group is not yet appointed. It is in the process of being appointed based on the partnerships we have. And you click on the partners and see a list of partners, but there's also a link if you're part of an organization. So at partners, beneath that, you see become a partner. There's a link there you can click if you're part of an organization that would like to become a partner. Send that in, and we respond back and tell you more about what it means to be a partner, and give you more information on how to become a partner. That partnership becomes important as we think about some of the service that are free to members, but it's actually costing us, for example, the access to free legal consultation. To provide that out to your members or your member community, then that requires a partnership and a separate agreement with AGU. Everything else up here, there's no cost involved. Okay, scrolling over next to leading practices. Let me just highlight a few things for you. Under data and publications, for example, the normal, if you're advising graduate students and want to share information on normal or regular research practices, there's some items here that you might be interested in. Acceptable research standards, data integrity, expectations, this whole item of data management practices and techniques, obligations, authors, and contributors. There's also a nice piece of information here on dealing with indigenous data that most of the community don't think about routinely, but this is very important. Information about standards and practices that are being promoted for dealing with indigenous data. And this information is provided through a program out of what's called a Native Americans Institute. It's at the University of Arizona. So I think this is important information for individuals to be aware of, especially in geosciences where we're often out gathering data and for our awareness and sensitivity. Okay. So under leading practices, let's take a quick look at diversity and inclusion, inclusive excellence, and things you might. So we actually have some book recommendations here. One staff book recommendations, What If I Say the Wrong Thing, 25 Habits of Culturally Effective People. It's a very short, easy read book, but I think I would recommend it. It's highly recommended. It's listed as staff recommendation. That was my recommendation. There are some TED Talks down below. Some of you may have seen the TED Talk by Take Your Humanity With You. It's powerful. So take a look at that if you get a chance. And then under other practices, there's a link up top. I clicked this morning, the link was broken, so don't click on culture and diversity just for the unit leaders until we get it fixed. But that is one that could be of interest to you. Some information on hiring diverse faculties. And then this last item, next to the last item, creating visibility. So it's Native American. Okay. So with that, let's go to addressing harassment. Let's just highlight a few items there that you may not be familiar with. So there are two items here. One is a resource guide for developing anti-harassment programs in academic meetings under leading practices and under additional resources. The last item listed there is an anti-harassment curriculum for GEO REU's sites. That's a fairly new posting, and this is an example of a service we can provide by posting information from other organizations that the members want the full community to be aware of. Uh, this these guidelines and this curriculum is still in draft stage. It's not in draft stage. It's in beta stage, but it's posted here at the request of the individuals who are working on this as a way, as a mechanism that they can point to this and help other people find it who might not be going directly to the IRIS website. So this is a anti-harassment curriculum for any organizations that are dealing with undergraduate research experiences, or any sites for undergraduate research experiences. So that's something you might want to take a look at. Okay. So I'll just hit a few more items and let's move over to workshops. So workshops, the very first link is to the Advanced Geo website. So that is a group that's being managed out of the University of Wisconsin. That's a broader organization with about 8 different partners, including with AGU. They sponsor workshops across various academic institutions. And you can contact them through this website. They are in high demand, so I'm not sure they're advertising for more workshops, but they are very good at what they do. There's a link for upcoming workshops where we promote the things that we are aware of. There are 5 or 6 listed there. I won't bother you with that. But then we have request a custom workshop. And I want to share with you how this works. So when you request a custom workshop at your institution, whether it's an institution of higher education, an industrial workshop, or whatever, then we can refer you or link you to facilitators that we know are very, very good, facilitators we have worked with, but your engagement on these workshops is not with AGU. So we make the connection, but we're not in the middle of any of your negotiation with what's going to be provided or the time or anything else. But if you make the request to AGU, what we can do is assure that you are being connected with someone that we have seen their work or we have worked with them and we know they're high quality workshop providers. Under resources, we're subdividing the resources for researchers and students and resources for the academic leads and department heads. So let's take a look first at for researchers and students. A few things here. There's some online instruction courses from NCPRE, some from AGI, workshops at AGU meetings. There is an implicit bias video series, so this could be of use to anyone, but this is out of UCLA. We have explicit agreement to link to their video series, and here you might already be aware of this, but here you will see what's listed. These are in snippets, so good learning comes best when you can do it in bite-sized chunks rather than going into a 3 or 4 hour session to learn something. And these are self-paced, of course. But so these are implicit bias videos. You can take these, but there's also a place here where you can actually take the implicit bias test on your own and learn some things. So up front, you want to take an implicit association test. If this is a project implicit, it takes only 10 minutes. That's something that might be of use to you as well. I'm going to come back to consultation with legal advisors. but for department heads and academic leaders, so the one thing I want to highlight most for department heads and academic leaders, some of these things have been listed. So underneath this, we have the STEM Equity Achievement Program. This is a link to a website that gives general information on Sea Change, and that's a program evolving out of AAAS that has institutions committing to voluntarily making measurements on their gender and racial STEM equity initiatives, and also we are involved, AGU and APS, some of the physics groups are involved in having to lead a parallel program in which we are signing up departments to be part of this so that your individual department can be recognized for the good work you're doing in this arena. We are having workshops on this currently. We plan to have this in the pilot programs by September 2020. And here's a place, if you click there now, you will see the general information from AAAS, and you'll soon see additional information about the departmental workshops. But the other things I want to highlight to you was really on this NCPRE Leadership Collection. There is a host of information here that may be of interest, and these are individual either videos or snippets or tip sheets on different topics. Transitioning to a role of authority, leading different types of groups, professional assessment leadership skills, building interpersonal relationships, leading and managing a unit, leading beyond the unit, negotiations, handling difficult situations, mentoring, instability and bullying. So this gives you an example of some resources that are available. You can read more. Some of these are just quick tip sheets that you can download, use for your own edification, or if you're dealing with some people in your graduate students or young faculty members, this might be good, very, very good resources for them as well. So I want to make sure you are aware of that. And then the final item I'm going to highlight is back on it's consultation with a legal advisor. You will see this as a separate header under resources for students and researchers. But I'm highlighting it here just to give you some information because we have had a lot of questions on this. So this is a program that's explicitly offered for student or early career members who have found themselves or believe they may be targets of harassment, bullying, or discrimination. And the way it works is this: the individual will contact us, request this service, and we then put them in contact with the legal advisor, but with some steps in between. The steps in between are these. There's a form that goes back to the individual. First, we verify that they qualify for the program. We've had a number of people contact us who are not members of AGU wanting to know if they could have this service. So AGU membership is a requirement. We've had some questions from people who have said, I'm a member of someone who's listed as a partner organization. Do I qualify? And today's answer is not yet. It's still a pilot program, and we have not expanded this to our partners until we have a sense for how this works over time. So today, you must be a member of AGU to participate in this program. The other question we have had is on career stage. This is explicitly for student or early career members, and early career being less than 10 years beyond your terminal degree. So we have had people request this service who are beyond those limits. So that's another clarification. And finally, as you apply for this, I may have said this earlier, but we require filling out an agreement between AGU, you, and the attorney, and each party then signs an agreement to understand the parameters that AGU is not providing legal advice, AGU is not responsible for the legal advice, the attorney cannot represent you if you decide to proceed to litigation. But this is more intended for people who don't know what to do, and we know this already. The people who are dealing with these situations, they feel isolated, they feel alone, they don't know what their options are, they don't know where to turn for help, and this is to assist with that. So we're proud of this offering. It's still in a pilot stage, but there's information there, including where you click to get started. But it is restricted to AGU membership currently. But as you know, AGU membership for students is only $20, so that should not be a barrier if someone is really struggling with things and really need to help. We'll find some way to make it happen. Okay. And finally, on the work climate tools, there's some. I won't bother you with that now, but there are some two different tool sets. One is information on the well-known ARC climate survey, and then the departmental survey tools that we are currently working to expand. This is a tool that's available from NCPRE. It's a very nice tool. It provides an ability to integrate and make comparative studies. And we're expanding this tool to give it the options to answer more questions than it currently does. Okay. All right, Leslie, I think that is it for now, and I'm ready to throw it back to you and throw it open for Q&A.
All right. And Pranoti's going to get the slides up for just the last few slides. And if you have a question, just type it into the question box on the right-hand side. It looks like we have quite a few questions coming in already. But if you saw anything that came up you weren't sure about, wanted more information, clarification, just be sure to type that into the question box.
Okay, thank you, Billy. That was very informative. I'm happy to help with the Q&A. There are several questions that have come in, and so let me first start off with the ones that have come in that are related to some of the resources you have on the website. So I'm going to combine a couple of questions. So one attendee is saying that a lot of the stuff that you presented is very academic focused. Is there a sort of plan to have more resources or develop resources that will help people who are not in academia? And if you do have those resources, how are there opportunities for companies, who want to help because they may already have, gold star processes and things like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is yes, we do plan to expand this and recognizing that the full breadth of our membership is not just academia. We are in consultation now with one leading industrial company for some type of partnership or engagement on this. The reason it started with these resources, those are the ones that the people who are working on this were most familiar with. But if you're aware of resources or things we can and should tap into more fully, please send them our way. We'd be very happy to explore them. If they meet our standards, we'd be very happy to promote them. Some of these, while they might have a current academic flavor, do apply more broadly, but you're absolutely right that the majority of the focus here has been among the academic institutions, and we're working on expanding. So we're still in a growth phase. It's only been up a month or so, but that's the type of feedback we're looking for. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Billy. I know I have a bunch more slides, and I'll show everybody your contact information so these attendees can certainly alert you to the resources they may have. So here's another question. One attendee was very interested in all the information you had about the various workshop leaders, who can give workshops. So they're asking, how can individuals be trained from these workshop leaders? Can you have sort of the trainer model so that, say, if a department chair or a dean comes to one of these workshops, can they then take that back to their institution or to their unit and give the workshop? So what is that process like?
Yeah, so at least two of the individuals we have currently posted as workshop providers do provide trainers because they're in such high demand that they can't do this themselves. There are a few other groups that I'm aware of that we're in dialogue with that offer trainers as well. And so those aren't currently posted, but as we don't post things until we know who they are, we've dealt with them, and we we have experience, and we know that they relate well to a scientific audience. But train the trainer is important, and the demand here is so great that we will have to have train the trainer opportunities going forward. But again, these workshops that are listed currently are not AGU workshops. These are workshops by others, and we'll work with them to make sure that they have opportunities to help spread the information.
Okay, thank you, Billy. Here's another question. There are one attendee is saying, I have many individuals in my department who are not open to learning about, in best practices, whether it's related to inclusion or whatever have you, or equity. How do we get people like these involved? What kinds of resources there might be, or what kinds of best practices are out there to get those people who don't want to, be involved in this kind of work?
Yeah, that's a tough question. So how do you bring people to the trough if they don't want to drink? And my answer to that, honestly, is let's not try to force it. Let the people where they are. And I think if we bring enough people around them, surrounding them, to say this, and let them see the positive impact and see where the culture's going, see where we're going with this, I think they will soon find that they are in the minority. And in order to catch up, they have to get on board. So it's not a great answer, but I think there's more to be gained currently by building and bringing on people who are sort of not detractors, but those who are just open to learning more, and let's let them learn more. And as we do that more and more, let's work on the people who are sort of on the edge of this and making sure they get the information, and put them in a setting where they can feel comfortable asking questions and not feeling like they're going to be embarrassed or going to be attacked if they say the wrong thing, for example. So I think it's more of us ourselves being patient with those who are not quite there yet, finding those who are on the edge and having to pull them into the broader discussion about race and the climate and making this inclusive environment. The one thing I would also say is let's make this about how do we raise our standards. So who could be against that? So that's my answer. It may not be a totally satisfactory answer, but that's my approach currently. How do we help those who want to be helped and grow the community that way?
All right, thank you, Billy. Maybe there's somebody in the audience who has some other suggestions. If you have those, why don't you add them to the chat box, and we'll find a way to read what advice people might have for this other, for this previous question.
Pranoti, if I could add, there is a resource there called Men as Allies. And
okay.
So that's a nice resource guide to that might give some more information. It's not that all men are resistant or men are bad. It's more how do you build a stronger community by sharing this and having men as allies as we go forward. Thanks.
Okay. And I think, Billy, when we post the recording to the webinar, maybe there's a way for you to highlight some of these things in a Word document or something that can be posted along with this. So I think that'll also help people navigate to some of these things related to the specific questions. We have another question that I think potentially is from someone who works in the federal government. It's a very long question, so let me read it directly from the question here. So this particular participant has enjoyed, listening to and learning about all the great resources. So they say, do you have a route to impact federal government practices? In the official government training, a manager that was convicted of discrimination against a female subordinate, his sentence was 2 weeks of training. The victim had to be reassigned to an equivalent position in another area. Please comment on consequences of perpetrators of discrimination that are demonstrated to adversely impact their workplaces and employees. This is a loaded question, Billy.
It is. And I will say this, that some government groups are more proactive than others. I know that for example, National Science Foundation has been pushing the boundaries and are very proactive in trying to address some of these items. NIH is now coming along. They posted some new information recently. I think this National Academies report received a lot of attention across government agencies. It has received attention in Congress, and Congress has oversight into what some of these government agencies do. So I think our best hope and attack is through the work of the academies and some of their influence on what Congress is doing and some of the laws and legislation that they are now seriously advancing. Now, Congress has its own issues, of course, but AGU we don't have any jurisdiction over what happens in an individual institution unless it's happening with AGU programs. We can help highlight those cases where we see something that's gone badly wrong. But I think the road to this culture change and elevating all of us is a long road. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. I think if you look back to when we started 3 years ago and that first discussion we had, I don't think we could have imagined where we are today. So we've made a lot of progress in 3 years. And we've made a similar amount of progress over the next 3 years. I think what you described as a situation that happened in that government department would not happen. So I think we just keep at it. Change, we're going for big change, but I think it's incremental steps, and we have to just stay strong and keep going.
Thank you, Billy. So there are a couple of folks who are saying that apparently the URL for the center has been blocked by certain federal agencies as an untrusted website. So that might be a point of conversation, as you continue your work, Billy. Anyway, one other attendee says, this is a great start. Does AGU have plans to assess the effectiveness and measure, what kind of change? So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, that's a big question, even here at AGU as well. So what are our measurements for success? How do we know we're making impact? And part of this is, AGU is making tremendous investment in this area. And so that's a real question for us as we go forward. We're also working with some external organizations who are looking at funding some additional initiatives that might evolve from this work. They are asking the same questions. How do we measure success? So I think most of those measures will be qualitative. We're still working on that, but we will have measurements of success in place. We also have a diversity inclusion advisory committee that's being started up, and one of their goals, one of their tasks is to help us address measurements we put in place to help evaluate AGU programs, especially in impact on culture and climate. I think it's going to be qualitative starting off, but we will have some more advanced tools shortly that will help us along the way.
Great, thank you, Billy. One other attendee says they're from another science organization. They're saying, we want to hold a workshop/town hall on academic code of conduct, especially regarding confidentiality and authorship. Are there any resources that you might currently have or that come to mind that could help host such a workshop?
Yeah, I would have to check on that back with our pubs people. I know they are involved with various workshops and trainings, both in the United States and outside the United States. So if that person could send me follow-up information, well, I'll get back to them and just see if we have anything specific to that question, specific to that request.
Okay, thank you, Billy. Another question here. I think early on in your presentation, you referred to something about a consortium. So somebody's asking, what's the difference between the center, which has obviously a lot of partners, and this consortium that you alluded to? Yeah.
So these are two totally separate things. There are a lot of the groups that are partners, most of the groups that are partners with us in this center, in the Ethics and Equity Center, are members of the consortium. There's no fee involved in being partners with AGU on this Ethics and Equity Center. Membership in the consortium involves a membership fee ranging anywhere from, I think, $2,500 a year to $15,000 a year. And as I said earlier, there are currently over 90 organizations who have signed up for that. So it's totally separate. It has a separate governance. It has an executive committee that's involved. And the goal for that consortium is to roll out different tools and practices and standards that the individual organizations can choose to adopt to their own organization. It's not prescriptive, it gives you a model. So it provides model practices and model policies that an individual organizations can adapt without having to start from scratch and developing on their own. So that's why there's such a demand for this. People see the need, they're willing to pay for that, and that's happening now. AGU is part of that. We were part of one of the 4 organizations that get it started, and we have a seat on the executive committee for that group. So totally separate. As we go forward, I don't know, it might evolve in a way such that what we're doing here might become a resource for that group as well. But you know, again, that just started. That just launched in December of 2018, and we just started this. I mean, we started a couple of years ago, but we just launched in February of this year. So parallel efforts, different focus. That group is across all of STEM, including medical institutions, medical societies. Currently, this is just urban space science partners primarily.
Okay, thank you, Billy. There's one other question. I think we have time for this one last question. It's again, I'm going to have to read it. This is a sort of obviously a response to about engaging community members who don't care about, you know, these kinds of issues of equality and ethics. So this person says, you know, I would respectfully disagree that the only thing we should do is meet people where they are. This person also suggests that one way AGU could actively work to change these minds is to be very explicit and sort of and think about giving awards and medals to those leaders and scientists who have a strong record of ethics and play an active role in making this a better community for all. So for folks who are nominated for these awards, you know, privately interview the students or the postdocs that work with them on a daily basis. This, you know, I think would be one of the steps that would need to be taken before, you know, to be taken before something like that would happen. And this person says, you know, focus more on awards here because that's what really tends to matter to most scientists' careers. So I think this is a great suggestion, but I'll let you comment on that.
Yeah, that is a great suggestion. It's a better answer than the one I provided, obviously. But I will say that those things are in progress. So the Sea Change STEM McAfee Awards are related to that. There's a recommendation from AGU that we pursue independently from that, awards and recognitions for people who are doing great work in this area. So those things are happening, and you're right. So how do we provide positive incentives for change as well? And in seeing people around you get awarded for this type of work, I think it can motivate others. So thank you for adding on to that. Appreciate it.
So that
All
was it for
right.
questions.
Yeah, I think just in the interest of time, we'll wrap up. Thank you so much, Billy. It was really informative, and we really appreciate you taking the time to share all these resources with us. And also thanks to the audience for joining. If you haven't already, AGU's next webinar is on April 4th, and we'll be discussing the President's fiscal year 2020 budget and what that means for science. And also keep an eye out for the follow-up email, which will include a recording to this webinar and also a list of some resources and things. So thank you so much.